Autumn was in full swing, hastily covering the ground with a blanket of fallen leaves. A hurricane-force wind howled, and rain poured down, making the thought of going outside utterly unappealing. Tree branches creaked and snapped under the onslaught, losing not only their leaves but also their brittle limbs, which fell to the asphalt and clogged the storm drains. Peeking out the window, I shivered. No way I was stepping a foot outside today. Besides, what was the point when I had everything I needed right here? My trusty laptop, with work files and a couple of top-tier shooters, the television remote, and, of course, a refrigerator with enough food to last a while. Couldn't do without that. I woke up late today, around 3 p.m., because I'd been up until dawn poring over paperwork. A glance at the calendar made me whistle in surprise. Wow, it's Halloween. Time flies. I'll have to watch the original movie later. John Carpenter is still brilliant, even after almost 50 years. Grabbing the television remote, I habitually flipped to the local news. A pretty blonde anchor, whose name I'd either forgotten or never knew, was speaking. A severe storm warning has been issued for the Zagrebski district and the region at large. The hurricane has been assigned the highest danger class. Residents are advised not to leave their homes unless absolutely necessary, and if possible, to stock up on drinking water and food for a couple of days. She chirped in a melodic voice. I shook my head, mocking her. How thoughtful. Stay home if possible. And who's going to work if everyone stays cooped up in their apartments? Hearing my shuffling feet, my dog, Belyash, immediately rushed over to greet me. Hey, you miss me? You could have woken me up earlier, you sleepyhead. I didn't name my dog after the meat pie for culinary reasons. The story is much darker, and even now, I don't like to tell it. But Belyash wouldn't mind. He just wagged his stump of a tail, happy as could be. I found him as a puppy after seeing a homeless man on the street carrying a strange bundle to a cheap food stall at the bus station. They sold fresh, hot Belyashi there, so business was always brisk, and the prices were great. Everything seemed normal, except the bundle in the vagrant's hands was suspiciously stirring, which sparked a wave of indignation in me. My hunch was right. Calling out to the man, I snatched the bag from his hands and looked inside. At the bottom, a tiny, shivering ball of white fur, no bigger than my fist, was whimpering. The bum didn't wait for an interrogation. With a loud cry, he bolted. I picked up the puppy and called the police, who in turn called the sanitation department. It turned out that the owner of the stall had been exterminating hundreds of stray animals to make his cheap product. Powerful meat grinders pulverized not only the meat, but also the bones. The case might have faded from my memory if not for one detail. During the inspection of the stall's back room, they found a human arm, severed at the shoulder, under a table. Nearby stood a small galvanized bucket filled with metal dental prosthetics and dog collars. But the worst was a sack filled with the hair of the victim's long, snake-like locks of men's and women's hair in various colors, crawling with lice and cockroaches. The sight would induce a gag reflex in anyone. That's when even the seasoned detectives got unnerved. Anyone could have eaten those pies. The owner was arrested immediately. As a defense attorney, it was my duty to prepare his defense. But the resourceful businessman didn't wait for his trial. In his pre-trial detention cell, he chewed through the veins in his own wrists and submerged himself in a bath of his own blood, staring blankly at the ceiling. His cellmates claimed they saw nothing, but who could verify that now? In any case, good riddance to the scumbag. It was a shame, though. He would have been a prized specimen for my collection. A handwritten book dedicated to the most depraved monsters and serial killers I'd encountered. Many people hated me because I didn't shy away from defending maniacs, Satanists, and even cannibals. But someone had to do it. By law, even a dismemberer who'd gone completely off the rails was entitled to qualified legal assistance. It didn't matter if his stomach was still churning with undigested human flesh. My schedule was erratic. I could work for days straight and then lounge on the couch for several more. It's only in movies that criminal defense lawyers live in interrogation rooms and sleep in police stations, cuddling up with maniacs caught red-handed. My name is Maxim Kotov. To my friends, I'm just Cat. My business cards are in every police station in the city, and every detective knows who to call when they encounter another monster in human form. Unfortunately, due to the nature of my work, I often run into trouble. Recently, I defended a serial killer who murdered his victims by driving an awl through their eye sockets. Just before his arrest, he tried to use the same method on himself. It didn't quite work. The eye was lost, but he survived, only partially damaging his brain. The injury caused him to lose some of his reflexes. He would wet himself in the courtroom and drool. When the verdict was read, he loudly soiled himself, provoking the wrath of the guards and their batons. Of course, I couldn't save that monster from a life sentence, and frankly, I didn't want to. Nevertheless, the families of his victims retaliated by dousing my car with green paint and covering it with expanding foam, as if I were the one wielding the awl in dark alleyways. Since then, I've only parked my beat-up car in a paid lot. It's expensive, but it gives me peace of mind. I never give out my real address and try to use a pseudonym in public. Many would love to send me to the next world, but I'm just a lawyer, defending the darkest spawn of humanity. It all stemmed from my fascination with the mystical and all forms of horror. That's why I was never afraid to enter a cell with the most vicious monsters to hear their confessions and build a defense. Tired of waiting for his food, Belyash let out an insistent whine. With a smile, I opened the fridge. My dog was no fool. He only ate boiled meat, turning his nose up at canned food, especially after he himself almost became the filling for a pie. It's been a while since I had a case, buddy, I said with a sigh. Money has a way of running out. If this keeps up, we'll have to switch to breadcrumbs. Belyash, being a smart dog, listened intently, then gave me a long, unblinking stare. Outside, the rain began to drum against the window again. A moment later, a powerful gust of wind tore a satellite dish from the roof and hurled it into a storefront window like a discus. I heard the tinkle of shattering glass and the cries of rain-soaked pedestrians. I shook my head and went to find my smartphone to check my email and missed calls. I always put it on silent mode at night. You never know who might get the bright idea to call in the middle of the night. A blinking missed call icon on the screen immediately sent a jolt of energy through me. People rarely called me for no reason. To be honest, my acquaintances were a little scared of me, thinking I'd absorbed some dark energy from my clients. That wasn't true, of course. I let their stories pass through me, but none of them ever settled in my heart. The number was unfamiliar. Wondering who it could be, I decided to call back. Listening to the long rings was tedious, but I forced myself to wait until someone picked up. Hello? You called me. There was some annoyed breathing on the other end. Yeah, I called. This is Lieutenant Egorov, the district officer for the Znamensky village. Look, we have a real nightmare here. I caught a maniac with dead bodies, a dismemberment. Damn it. He's demanding to see you. Even gave me your name and your business card. I raised an eyebrow in surprise. A dismemberment? Are you sure he's the one? And why haven't you taken him to the district police department? The lieutenant hesitated. Well, you see, it's not that simple. 3 people are dead. I called the district, of course. They said they'd send a car and a forensics team. But have you seen the weather? The road's washed out, the old bridge collapsed, and trees are falling one after another. An old maple just crushed the local post office. The only way in is the dirt road from the side of the micro-district. For now, I've locked the suspect in the basement of the local church. I grunted in disbelief. The church basement? What are you planning to do? Exorcise his demons? No. What demons? It's just that the basement is secure. The walls are a meter thick, built before the Revolution, and the oak doors are reinforced with sheet iron. I could hear the offense in the officer's voice, so I quickly tried to smooth things over. All right, Lieutenant. Don't get worked up. If you need me to come, I'll come. No problem. But what did he do? Can you tell me anything concrete? The policeman paused for a moment, as if choosing his words carefully, then blurted out, "A mass murder. Ritualistic, it seems. 3 people killed in a clearing behind the village, and it looks like it's related to Halloween. Just come, you'll see everything for yourself." Hearing the number of victims, I perked up. A case like this would definitely be high profile, which meant a major boost to my already complicated karma. Okay, I'll be there. But don't tell anyone about this besides the district police, all right? I want to see the scene for myself. Got it, Maxim Igorovich. I'll be waiting. Just be careful and don't get too close to the trees. The church building is your landmark. You'll figure it out. And please hurry. It gets dark early now. I nodded in agreement and ended the call. My mood had improved significantly, despite the howling wind outside. Finally, I was back in the game. Sure, the weather was awful, but I wasn't going on foot. I'd take my car, and the fact that it was Halloween? Even better. This maniac's case would undoubtedly attract a lot of attention. The weather conditions outside had worsened. The wind was now bending trees to the ground, as if forcing them to bow to some mythical gods. Power began to fail in different parts of the city, and rivers of mud mixed with sewage from the flooded drains and fallen leaves flowed through the streets. Damn it! Why did I agree to go to this village? I thought, looking mournfully at Beliash. I had been itching for a case for days, a craving so intense I was willing to do anything to satisfy it. Beliash started to whine softly, as if he knew my thoughts. What is it, boy? Want to have a heart-to-heart? Tell me not to go out at night, to be a good human. I knelt down to him. No, Beliash, don't even ask. I'm going. You don't want to switch from boiled meat to stale bread, do you? That's what I thought. Promise you'll wait for me, I asked. The dog barked in agreement and wagged his stump of a tail. I smiled, pulled on a shortened rain jacket with a hood over my hoodie and jeans, and didn't forget my shoulder holster with its revolver. I'd gotten the permit right after law school. Better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6 drunken bastards who'd cut me up in a dark alley. Outside, a hellish chaos reigned, as if the heavens had decided to trade places with the underworld. I practically ran to the paid parking lot, splashing through puddles in my rubber boots. What was the point of nice shoes in a village? I'd save my Italian suede ones for the regional courthouse. Only when I was behind the wheel of my time-worn SUV did I feel relatively safe. Glancing at my watch, I started the engine and, with a reckless turn, left the lot, ignoring the angry shouts of the retired security guard. The drive was difficult. The wipers worked almost non-stop, struggling to clear the sheets of water crashing down on the city. I'd been to Znamensky before. It was nothing special, just a typical provincial backwater full of superstitions, mostly spread by the elderly. It was only when I turned onto the dirt road the lieutenant had mentioned that I realized how tough this would be. Fallen trees lay everywhere, and streams of rainwater had already cut the road into sections. I put on my favorite rock song about forests and wolves, trying to push away my anxious thoughts and concentrate on driving. Operating almost on autopilot, I skillfully maneuvered the car, weaving around one fallen tree after another. I must have passed at least a dozen, but when a massive oak tree crashed down behind me in a powerful gust of wind, I realized with horror that my way back was cut off. Damn it, I I'm in deep now, I exclaimed, slamming my fist on the steering wheel. My heart pounded, and a foul taste filled my mouth. But it was too late to turn back. The only way was forward, to the village of Znamensky, the scene of a recent mass murder. The rest of the way was surprisingly better. There were fewer fallen trees, and the hurricane's squall had shifted slightly, bypassing the village. I saw the church from a distance, an old wooden building with its gilded dome and cross gleaming faintly. Although I'd never been superstitious, I felt a little uneasy. A bloodthirsty maniac locked in the basement of a village church, it sounded like the plot of a horror movie. At the turnoff to the church, I saw Lieutenant Egorov. He was dressed in a rain-slicked uniform and looked up as my headlights flashed, silently pointing toward the edge of the forest, where, I presumed, the murders had taken place. Good, I thought. I'll get a look at the scene myself before the forensics team arrives. Then a thought struck me. Will they even make it here tonight, considering the oak tree behind me? I turned the wheel, almost splashing the lieutenant with mud. He declined to get in the car and trudged glumly behind my vehicle. As I approached the clearing, I noticed a huge crimson stain of pooled liquid in the center. Could it be blood? I killed the engine, got out of the car, and approached on stiff legs. What I saw made me sick to my stomach. 3 mutilated bodies lay in the clearing in unnatural poses, or what was left of them. All had been eviscerated, their hearts torn from their chests. I knew this from the characteristic holes in their rib cages, the result of brutal traumatic force. Raindrops had collected in the empty hollows of their abdomens. I heard footsteps behind me and knew without turning that it was the lieutenant. Who did this to them, Lieutenant? Was it your detainee? Igorov sniffled, clearly frozen from waiting for me in the downpour. It was him, Maxim Igorovich. That lunatic came to me himself, covered in blood from head to toe. He had a knife in his hand and a necklace of intestines around his neck. Kept muttering something about Halloween and a 25-year cycle. I shuddered and looked at the officer in surprise. He wasn't a big guy. It was hard to believe he'd subdued this butcher himself. He couldn't have been more than 30, though I was about the same age myself. Shaking off the thought, I asked, "How did he get my card? And who is he? Give me a profile on him, Lieutenant, and then I'll talk to him myself. He is in handcuffs, right?" The officer smirked. "Of course, Mr. Lawyer. Handcuffs, leg chains, the works. He's a local shepherd, Fyodor Antipov, 25 years old. Arrived here a couple of months ago. A gloomy, unsociable grump. The locals whispered that he was intimate with his sheep, but I don't believe that. But he was definitely strange, that's a fact." I shook my head, then asked the question that was bothering me. "And who did he kill? Have you identified the victims?" The lieutenant's face darkened. "Can't say for sure, but they were definitely from the city. Came to the clearing to celebrate Halloween. Brought pumpkins, candles, robes, all the ritual stuff. Apparently, Fyodor didn't like it, so he butchered them and sent them to the next world." "Then where are their organs?" I pressed, shivering under the intensifying rain. The officer blew his nose loudly, then wiped his hand on his rain cape. "That, I don't know. But Fyodor said he'd only tell you, and that he'd confess to everything before the police arrive." I grimaced, but there was no backing out now. "All right, take me to your basement. Let's see this Fyodor. And what's your first name?" "Oleg," the officer replied, and started walking toward the church cellar, the entrance to which was on the outside of the building. The entire way back to the church, I couldn't shake a strange feeling of unreality. Why were there no lights on in any of the windows? Maybe the hurricane had knocked out the power to this godforsaken village. Damn it, why did I even come here, especially at night? Twilight was already deepening, and I still had to listen to a maniac's confession. Well, to hell with it. What's done is done. Soon, Officer Igorov led me to a massive door and began to wrestle with a huge barn lock. As he finally managed it and swung the door open, he stepped aside to let me pass. Inside, a kerosene lamp burned dimly, and the room reeked of unwashed human bodies and something else, reminiscent of goblin dropping. I confidently lifted my foot to step over the threshold, intending to impress the officer with my fearlessness. Just then, a powerful blow struck the back of my head, and my vision swam. As I lost consciousness, I tried to turn, but the same strong hand shoved me forward into the lair of the killer, Fyodor, who was waiting for his next victim. My God, how did I let myself get caught so easily? The whole thing was a trap from the very beginning.